All right. Want to make sure I'm not going to get cut off. Looks like the video is a little bit wonky. All right. Well,
You mean like at an angle?
well, no. I mean, yeah, a little bit, but that's okay. That's just the nature of this stupid thing that holds the camera, the phone. It's just the phone. But hi everybody, and welcome to my channel. I'm doing a live stream with my wife, Lindsay, and we're just you wanted to talk about something that I have also discussed a little bit,
Yeah.
and I think it would be I just think it's interesting because it's sort of like connected to the sort of larger uh, cultural discussion in a way, because it's like we'll go ahead and
Well,
just say what's on your mind.
when I first started to really think about it, it was after you did a video for HPR, and it was the Breonna Taylor one, and you
Oh,
you
yeah,
you
yeah,
got
yeah,
some
yeah.
information wrong, and you
Yeah.
told me about it, and you told me that somebody was like freaking out about it, and like at the time I was like, well, you're like spreading misinformation. That's not good, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But then I started thinking, but like is it that big of a deal? I mean, ultimately, we want like information from the internet. Most of us. I mean, some of us aren't looking for that. We're looking for cats or porn. But
Yeah.
a lot of people are looking for information, or in that case, probably news from a certain perspective. So if you're spreading that misinformation, you need to correct it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you need to be honest. But I think a lot of people like over respond to things being wrong on the internet. And I think one of the reasons is, and this is what I wanted to talk about, is that there's no real way to judge someone's character on the internet. Like, I think it's best to judge people by their character and their actions, but on the internet, there is no way to
Yeah,
know
you don't.
what people are doing in their real life.
Yeah, you're not getting like you can't really see their character because you're not getting the full person. You're getting like a representative of that person. So like their online presence is curated, and unless they're just being themselves all the time,
Yeah.
so you're
And
not getting like a real
of course,
picture.
people, especially people that are more like interested in this kind of content, they're very sensitive to virtue signals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't be a virtue signaler because,
Yeah.
but like honestly, what else could you do on the internet but signal that you're virtuous? Because, like, I mean, there's no other way for people to know. You know what I mean? Like, I can understand why people do that kind of stuff, but so what I was gonna say is that the part of the reason I think that this is happening is because like it is a virtue to be honest and to be accurate and to be precise, right?
Yeah.
So if you aren't, and like then I think it becomes sometimes even a moral issue, and people can be morally superior towards you because you were wrong on the internet.
Yeah, and like it makes it really hard to. This is the thing, when the Breonna Taylor thing happened, where I put out the video. I thought it was worth sharing, but I did get some details wrong. But I didn't think the details didn't seem to me to be like all that important to the central thrust of what I wanted to get at, which
Right.
had nothing to do with the details. It was about
Right.
the narrative
It was
around Breonna
it
Taylor
was less
not being
news.
true.
It was less news and more
It
editorial.
was commentary, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm not a journalist, so I wasn't like I wasn't holding myself to journalistic standards. Now, I understand that it's important to be accurate, but I guess what was annoying was there were people jumping down my throat because I didn't get every single detail right. And Allison freaked out, and we made like a follow-up video, and we had to clarify everything. And I was really irritated by that because the reason wasn't because I wanted like my mistakes to be ignored.
Mm-hmm.
The reason was I felt like all of this stuff we were doing was taking away from the central like focus. And also maybe more than that, when I put out videos, I don't want to tell people what like I don't want to come across as authoritative. I want to come across as like, hey, let's have a conversation.
Right.
So if I was sitting down with my friend, at like just like you and I are right now, I was sitting down with some friends and I said, hey, did you guys hear about the Breonna Taylor case, like, or whatever, right? Whatever the case is, George Floyd, it doesn't matter, right? And I was describing like some stuff that I learned that moved away from the central narrative, which is, you know, it was a racist white cop that it felt like assassinating a black person because racism.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, that can't be the answer because here are some additional factors. And I get one of the factors wrong, right? And there's a friend of mine sitting at the table that knows it. He may issue a correction. He may say, well, you know what, actually, technically, it wasn't Breonna Taylor's boyfriend that, you know, was the drug dealer. That was her ex-boyfriend, and the current boyfriend was living with her, and he, you know, he was a legal gun owner and whatever, right? Like if I get these little things wrong. But because we're sitting there and they're my friends and we're having this conversation, they won't say, therefore, everything you said is pointless and moot and you're stupid and I'm better than you. They will instead say, well, I'm just adding to the conversation. I want to correct that. But your central point, which is that this is not the product of racism,
Yeah.
that is still true, right? So there's like a different.
Yeah. Well, your friends aren't going to like,
No.
What do I want to say? Like, they're not gonna be suspicious of your motives or your
Right.
intentions.
Right.
But I think it makes sense that people would be suspicious of your motives on the internet, and like they might think you're trying to spin something a certain way.
Yeah, because so many people do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like that's the problem. That's why I call the video pure. There is like kind of purity testing that happens where,
and it
you know,
happens in like every like little niche and
yeah, it
tribe
doesn't
that
matter what
happens
your
that like
politics
kind of
are.
works in the internet. Like every single group I've ever been in on Facebook or whatever, it could be diet related, it could be like breathing exercise related,
Mhm.
like anything.
Oh yeah, the carnivore group that you're in.
I didn't want to get into specifics.
We don't have to, but like I'm in like a D&D group and they do the same thing. Like everyone says this is how you do things, and you know, and they're all like it's like.
And so then you start like judging people on how correct they are, and then it becomes a moral superiority thing. And even if you're like an anti-feminist, anti-SJW, it still happens in those groups.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of like purity testing based on you being correct, and like, okay, this person is more correct, so they're morally superior.
Yeah.
So it's like.
And the tough thing about that is.
I hate those games.
No, I hate that too. Because the thing I want to do is I just want to have conversations. So like I think that if you can't have like a little bit of a, maybe you treat it like I wouldn't even say it's a debate. It's more like, you know, you're engaging in a kind of group brainstorming session about a certain thing, and someone brings something to the table, and maybe some of it isn't right, but a lot of it is, or the central thing is. Well, in a healthy, like sort of community, I guess you could say, where they're having this conversation, the best ideas will come out, and then they'll like sort of coalesce them together, and then they'll really come to some good, healthy conclusion. But I think people's egos get in the way because they want to be the most right, or they're always ready to pounce when someone, you know, doesn't say something the right way. And I think that, and I honestly believe that actually, like, maybe that kind of maybe that's like lends towards the people who like to spin things. Like it gives them a little bit more power because they make people who are maybe more they have like the central argument is really strong, but they don't, maybe they're like a little less confident about like putting their arguments out there because they're afraid of getting like a detail wrong.
Yeah. And
so they don't say anything, right? Because they're like, well, like for example, one thing that I've been talking about is I've been talking about how I'm pretty sure, but I don't know for certain, that men pay into the taxes. They pay more taxes than women across the board. And so therefore, their taxation benefits women. So even if you're not a part of, like if you're a MGTOW and you're avoiding the system, you're still a part of the system because you're being taxed and your money's going to women, right? And but I talk about like essentially the idea that men pay more into taxes. But the thing is, if somebody said, I need data on that, otherwise I'm just going to throw it out, the only thing I can tell them is that if there is a wage gap, which there is an earnings gap, then that means men make more money, then they must therefore pay more taxes.
I think there are stats on it. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but I don't have them handy,
Right.
right? And there is a guy I know that's looking into it that I have to like talk to him and get him to actually get me the numbers. But the point is that what I'm saying is very highly likely to be correct.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, I don't actually have the data in front of me.
Where are the genes?
Right. And so people are going to, if I bring it up and they say, well, if I don't have a citation, I don't want to hear about it. Well, that means we can't even have a conversation.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't have it, a healthy conversation, a person would be like, okay, well, let's take what you're saying as true, and then let's explore the idea. And then let's look at it from a couple of other perspectives, right?
Yeah.
Because if you say you're not allowed to speak unless you have all the answers, well, then no one is allowed to speak, or
Yeah.
very few people.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not really complaining, and I don't even really have solutions. It's just something I've observed.
It's a phenomenon.
Yeah, and I think it's because, like I said, you can't really like judge someone's character based on their actions on the internet. It's basically my whole thing.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, well, that's why it does, like you said, it becomes a conversation about, not even a conversation. It basically like goes from, this person did this thing and that makes them noble, but you can't observe those things and you can't see them for who they are, like the whole person, like all their flaws and everything else. And so like if a recovering alcoholic, ex-con does like a nice thing, like he rescues a dog, that's like in a river or something. I think that the good that he does, it actually, it comes across as even stronger because of the bad that he has done. So it's sort of like, someone is like, if being good comes easy, then it's sort of worthy of less praise. But if it's difficult, maybe it's worth more. But we don't know how much that person struggles, because usually we only see what they want us to see. So it's not like meeting a real person. I don't know if that's making any sense.
No, it makes sense. I think you can kind of like catch somebody's like I don't know, honesty and maybe consistency, like just by like observing their, I don't know, consistency to make videos and to tell the truth and to put up corrections and stuff like that.
Their integrity.
Their integrity.
Yeah, I think there are people that do that. And again, I'm not saying that like I didn't want to issue a correction, but I was perturbed by how urgent it was, because I thought it was
missing the point of the video.
It was missing the point of the video. It was also, I think, treating what I was saying that wasn't important, that was sort of secondary, if not even tertiary, to the video, especially because these cases of, quote unquote police violence are so sensitive, and to be fair too, within the men's movement there is like a split. There are guys that just hate the cops, right? They just think that they're a part of this misandric, oppressive, systemic structure of institutional systems. And I don't. I think that cops are also men, and I think that if there's a problem, if there's a problem with police violence, it's not those individual cops. It's like, it's the government itself, right? And so, yeah, we can criticize that. But anyway, I think that it's a really sensitive issue for people. And I do think that people use the, how accurate you are or not as a means by which to judge you as a person. So if you're like, even if you just say a
Yeah.
person's name wrong, like like how they say, oh, it's not pronounced Kamala, it's pronounced Kamala.
Yeah.
Like that's like a thing that people throw. If
Yeah.
you ever been in an argument with someone and they go and correct your grammar, like
Yeah.
they'll do anything to dismiss your arguments.
Yeah. Or like I've heard so many times that people won't watch certain videos because of the way that person sounds.
Yeah, they'll
I
say I
can't listen.
couldn't
I
I
couldn't
couldn't
get
make
through a
it 30
minute.
seconds of this video because there was just like the way they sound or look or their tone or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Except for V, I can't handle his videos. His accent's too strong for me. I mean, I look, he's a smart guy. I like him, but I can't. His voice is just like nails on a chalkboard. I just can't handle it.
Yeah.
Anyway, did you want to say anything else or about this?
Well, I guess I would just open it up to the internet.
Yeah, right.
Like what? Like maybe I'm wrong, or maybe there's some other reason that being wrong on the internet is such a high offense that I haven't thought of.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I would say is that there is a problem with it. And the problem with it is it does stifle conversation. So like,
well, yeah. And if you just want to be like morally superior in a conversation, that's no like what's the point of a conversation?
Exactly.
We can just end it here. Okay, you win. You're better than me.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You can't actually have a conversation with someone who, and a lot of people like on Twitter, which is absolute cancer.
Yeah.
All it is people trying to dunk on each other. Like I was mentioning this to you before because I think that this fear of being wrong, there isn't just like a bunch of people willing to pounce on others if they catch them being wrong because they want to elevate themselves, which is kind of what's happening, But there's also people who are terrified to put their ideas out there because they don't want to be wrong.
Yeah.
And they don't want to make a mistake.
Well,
and
I think it's good to not want to be wrong.
No. Yeah, I know. But I mean, like, to the point where you're not even willing to start talking.
Right.
Because it's like, it's a different kind of, it's a kind of self-censorship, right? Because like Jordan B. Peterson, he said that, free speech is how you formulate ideas and put them out there in the world.
Right.
And part of what that entails is putting your ideas out there and then having other people respond to them by adding to it, by correcting you, by expanding on your ideas, or maybe they carry them and then they think about that idea and then it evolves in their mind and they share it and it's like another version of it, right?
Right.
But if you're really afraid of like saying the wrong thing and being inaccurate in some way because you don't want like what the result should be, which is more conversation, more speech. Instead, it becomes like a shutting down. Like, oh, don't listen to that person. They don't know what they're talking about. Right?
Yeah, you are now on my bad person list.
Yeah.
Unsubscribe.
Yeah, they're like, and you're not just wrong, but you're immoral.
Yeah.
You're a bad person. You're being judged based on that.
That's the jump that I'm like really critical of.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, there are...
Like you're wrong, and I don't know your intentions, like if you had any malicious intentions in spreading misinformation, but that makes you a bad person.
Yeah.
That's kind of a jump.
It is. I mean, there is a point where I think that it's fair to do, because if you see that someone's constantly lying, then yeah. But like if someone just makes a mistake, but it, you can just correct it, and again, a person that has integrity will be grateful for that correction.
Yeah, I was like talking about like the situation that kind of happened with you, where it's like, I don't know, like why, like maybe your intention wasn't malicious, but maybe people thought that because you have a bias that you just maybe unintentionally started spinning something. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, yeah, again, like it wasn't, I think the only thing I was trying to communicate is that the narrative, the central, most important part of the Breonna Taylor narrative could not be true under the
Right.
circumstances. And it
Yeah.
doesn't, the circumstances themselves could be different from what I said, which they were to some degree, but they didn't at all impact the central narrative. And so people were nitpicking me because they wanted to dismiss the central narrative,
Right.
right? It wasn't because they actually cared about all the facts. It was because they hated my central message and they wanted to dismiss that. It's just like people correcting your grammar
Yeah.
or dismissing you based on your tone of voice.
So that's not even a moral superiority thing. It's like just a way to dismiss.
Yeah, it's a kind. I think,
fast track.
but if they,
shortcut.
well, yeah, but I mean, like calling out somebody for being inaccurate can give you the moral high ground if you can insinuate that they're lying or they're being that way on purpose.
Right.
Because then it says, oh, look, I'm an honest person. This is not an honest person, right? But people make mistakes. And I guess that's, the real takeaway is understanding the difference between when someone makes a mistake and when someone is intentionally trying to manipulate reality, trying to change the truth.
Yeah.
So
I guess so. And like maybe catching yourself if you're doing it. Because I think that everybody's like, tempted. Maybe a bit.
yeah. Well, you mean like tempted to spin?
When I was not to spin, like
to lie,
to purity test other people.
Oh
like,
yeah.
I mean, it happened more when I was younger. I don't really do that anymore, but I think it's just like a human nature thing. Like you're like, okay, here's my tribe, and you aren't part of it, so.
Yeah, no, I think that people do, and again, it feels good to be right on the internet. Like there's like it's sort of like, what in a way it's what social media is used for, is people showing you how great they are, and part of that means like how bad other people are by comparison.
Yeah.
So it's people pulling themselves up and tearing other people down. And yeah, I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. And I'm not even going to say it. I'm just going to put this out there because I've heard this a lot. I'm not going to say that social media caused this. I'm going to say that this is the way we are. And social media just exacerbates that. This is
the way we are on the internet.
This is the way we are. This is the way human beings are. Like if we could do it without the internet, we would. And I think that we do in a way, because if you look at like partisan punditry on television with regards to the news and spin, they do the same thing. It's just that with the social media, we all have access. But I think that people are going to do that. In fact, you could say that people do that to each other in, like, say, cliques in high school. They do sort of similar things, right?
Yeah, I think the like, I don't know how to say, like teenage and maybe young adulthood mind is like super focused on peer group stuff. Like, what are my peers doing?
Identity.
And and what's my tribe? It's definitely more concerned. As you get older, you kind of like get over it, I think.
Yeah.
Well, most people do.
Yeah.
But I mean, can you imagine being a kid that completely grew up like on Instagram and Snapchat and
I knew I would when I was in school the second time around, which wasn't that long ago, maybe like 2012. So it was like 8 years ago, I think. And no, it was in 2014-ish. Obviously I was going to school with kids that were much younger than me. They were like in their, late teens, early 20s, right? And I remember I met a girl in my classroom that was anti-feminist, or she said that she was. And she made these posts on Facebook where she would criticize, feminism. But what I didn't quite understand, because I was like fascinated by that, so this is cool, right? She knew who Judgy Bitch was. That's how I knew about her. So she followed Janet Bloomfield.
Yeah.
And
she was my first too.
Yeah. And I was fascinated by that, right? But then like I tried to get to know her because I thought, well, you don't see a lot of anti-feminist people, especially in college. So I was like, well, I'd like to get to know this person and, like see what kind of circles they travel in. It could be like useful to know people like that. But what I came to realize was that her ties to that opinion was not something that came from her actually like coming to these conclusions on her own, but rather her desire to identify with it was almost like a fad or like a community. And she would constantly refer to, like, when I told her, well, yeah, like I was working with HBR, it was early on. I was like, this is what I do and this is what I think. And I do, I'm an MRA, blah, blah, blah. And she like just wouldn't respond to that. And she would just say, are you in the community? Like she would just say that.
Community.
Right. I guess there was some community she was in. Like it could be a Facebook group. It could be like on Reddit. I don't know. But she was in a community and assumed that anyone who was talking about those same talking points were in the same community.
That's interesting.
So when she would say, are you in the community? I'd say, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And she would like know people by name, right? So she would,
Yeah.
so it was like a different animal altogether. And of course, one day she just wasn't with that community anymore. So she wasn't anti-feminist anymore. So like her identity with the set of ideas wasn't actually an identity with a set of ideas. It was an identity with a group, with a tribe, with a community of people. And when she had a falling out with the community, her politics changed completely.
That's crazy.
And she just
people need to shut off their TV, their phones, and their
But
internet for a bit and think for themselves.
Yeah, but this is what I thought about when you
Just think for a
said,
bit.
can you imagine growing up with Instagram and stuff?
Yeah.
Because I think she was probably like 20 years old. So my guess would be is that is her experience, right? So, and I think this is why it goes, just briefly.
I wasn't thinking when I was 20, so.
Yeah, there you go. I would think that this is why somebody like Hunter Avallone, it's like the same thing, right? Where Hunter Avallone, who was a pretty big YouTuber and made videos, well, he still makes videos, but his whole thing was, I'm a conservative, unlike, these crazy liberals on the internet, and I'm gonna make videos exposing them and stuff. And then I met him. I thought that he was just like any other YouTuber that I liked, like Sargon or even Chris Reagan at the time, they would come from a position of, these are the things I believe in, these are the reasons why I do, I've looked into these ideas, and therefore I stand opposed or I'm critical of the opposite position or an absence of principles in this particular area or whatever, right? But when I met Hunter at MythCon in 2017, 18?
I don't remember. I was there, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember what year. I think it was 2017. I met him at MythCon in Milwaukee, and I recognized him, and I was like, "Oh, Hunter," and I wanted to get an interview, and he said, I asked him why he was here, and he was like, "Well, I wanted to bring a conservative point of view because they never invite conservatives to MythCon, and I think that they should." And and it was like he was so sure about that. Yeah. And I never got the interview because he was just like buzzing all over the place. But I also talked to Roaming Millennial, aka Lauren Chen and Liam. They were there, and I spoke to them briefly too. And with the sense I got is that at that time, I thought it was a little bit strange that Hunter was like seeing this as I'm a conservative, so therefore, and then I believe these things, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't like I believe these things, so therefore I would fall into this camp or that camp, or maybe I'm a little bit of, I overlap
I'm
this
bringing
way.
this unique perspective because I believe in this. It was like, no, I'm a conservative.
Right, and so that comes with these
Yeah.
things, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was strange until he made that, I think it was like when he started moving away from conservatism, when he made that video about, conservatives aren't being censored on social media and, you're just crime victim or whatever. And then he started having conversation with Vosh, and I called him on the phone. I have his phone number. I called him on the phone and I was like, dude, Vosh is fucking crazy. And he was like, no, he's just trolling. And I was like, what? Like, do you listen to what he says? Like, and now he's basically like, I wouldn't say he swung the other way, but he's basically just changed camps in a way, right? So and I guess this goes back to what I was saying. Like, maybe it's because he's a younger guy, and maybe he also grew up on social media, but these aren't coming from a position of I feel I have these ideas and these principles. It's more like I'm in this camp, and so therefore it comes with these things. And that goes back to what we were saying before about being right or wrong on the internet. I think there are people who they just want to feel like they're a part of the right groups.
Yeah.
Because it gives them the moral high ground.
Virtue.
And yeah, and where that is, if you haven't figured out where your own principles are, like what you actually believe about every individual given issue, you're probably like not going to fit neatly into anything. But for some people, it's more important to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to go with whatever, maybe like it could be based on how popular it is. It could also be based on how much of an underdog position it is.
Right.
There are people who just want to be contrarians, but they haven't actually done the work. So,
yeah.
I'm sorry, have I like belabored this point too much?
No. Oh, I mean, I don't know.
I guess we can look at the comments. We've gone for about a half an hour, which
Wow.
isn't too bad. So, I'm going to look at the comments here.
I was thinking of something while you were talking, but I don't really remember what it was.
Is it about Hunter calling himself a conservative?
Something, yeah, because weren't we talking about the other day when we were hiking?
Yeah, I forgot.
Fuck. You just look through the comments.
All right, let me look at the comments. Hanlon's Razor.
Oh, yeah, I know what it is, but it's kind of like a tangent. It's probably too much of a tangent.
Imagine being a brony in 2020. I guess they're just talking about other shit right now.
Brownies.
I'm going to have to move up a little bit because I feel like I'm like reaching. We're going to do a Hodge Twins video, so I'm going to be this close, and you're going to be in the back. Yeah. Okay, so the police are part of the problem on an operational level, not an individual one. Yes. Hi, Brian and Lindsay. Hello, Jeremiah.
Hello.
Yeah, but I think that people are too quick to jump on, oh yeah, like ACAB and all that. When the truth is, the overwhelming majority of men who decide they want to be, and women that decide they want to be police, they have like, I just want to. It's not, oh, I just want a gun and a badge and the ability to shoot people. It's usually
some
like,
of them might be,
I know, but I think the majority are
because
there's like, there's like, you can't just join the police force. Like there's. You have to qualify, and there's a number of criteria, parameters involved. So, okay, let me scroll to the end. Brian, your skull seems to be outside of your head. Oh, that's my.
That's mine.
That's
my skull.
That's not your skull.
No, it's not.
Oh, I bought that at Walgreens like 10 years ago. It's still there. Let's see. Jeff Holiday. Jeff is still around. Yeah, he's a borderline tanky now, shaman. He and his wife are political in the social sense. They had a falling out with a few of the normie skeptics, and now he's aboard the free speech unless ooh-woo train. His wife simps for Antifa. Hey, Zero, what's up? Yeah, I get, you see, that's the thing. That's more that click shit I was talking about, really, right? Like, when, and I hate saying the skeptics, but like when it was like really popular, you know what I'm saying? When it was really popular to be a skeptic, though, there were a bunch of people who jumped on the bandwagon. But I think,
was it ever?
Well, it's relative.
Yeah.
Like if like when I watched a lot of videos by those people,
yeah,
I was pretty picky about who I subscribed to. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm sure that Bunty King has content that's just as philosophically deep as Carl Benjamin does.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I like this person's content because I feel like they just care about this stuff and they just want to talk about this stuff. But I won't watch this person's content because A, I'm sure I'm not going to hear anything I've never heard before, and they're probably a couple years behind on this conversation. And B, I think that some of them are jumping on the bandwagon. It goes back to what I was saying before.
A lot of them were.
Oh,
Back in
yeah.
the day, I don't think people are as much now.
Well, because after a while it gets flushed out.
I don't know what the new
Like
thing is. I'm probably out of touch.
the new thing is the new thing is the 2020 election apparently, because that's basically it. That's on everybody's
I
lips.
saw that Maddox is back to talk about the election.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, in a way, there's actually no. It's actually split off into lots of little cultural and political sub groups, and there is probably
The
some
walkaway stuff is probably its own thing now.
Yeah, walkaway is a big thing, but again, mostly that's just Brendan Straka that runs that.
And what's her name?
Carolyn Borisenko?
Yeah, she's kind of come out of nowhere and like made a name for herself. She's the one that I wanted to bring up, but it's like a tangent.
I know. No. Yeah. Go ahead. This is the idea that the reasons why you decide to shift
any group or political leaning.
Yeah, moving away from a camp. Yeah.
It's because some people in that group, or most of them even, were assholes. And I think that if a lot of people are like being jerks and they're not open to new ideas, I think that's a good way to to sense if you should be there or not. But shouldn't your political leanings be based on your principles and not how people treat you? It's kind of worrying.
I just I honestly really dislike that people have that story. I just think
when I say worrying, I don't mean I'm worried about it.
No.
I
think it's just really weak to be like, I used to be X political party, but then X political party said mean things about me, and now I'm with Y political party or group or tribe or whatever.
Yeah.
If anybody goes, oh yeah, I used to be a men's rights activist, but then MRAs said mean things, and now I'm a feminist.
They disagreed with me on this thing.
Yeah, get out of here. You're weak. That's just weakness. You just don't know how to. You don't have any principles. It was like you were never one to begin with.
Yeah.
You can't just pretend oh yeah, now circumcision isn't important or whatever. It's no longer considered mutilation because some MRA guy made a joke about me or said something that I don't like or whatever, right? So I just think it says it's weakness.
It also could be the problem with the left-right thing. Maybe it's just bogus, as Brian always says.
It is bogus. Well, the way in which people use the language of left and right, liberal, conservative, it's bogus.
If you think you're on that left-right spectrum, the bogus one, maybe it makes sense that you would change based on other things, not principles. Because what are the principles of the right-left spectrum? Does anyone really know? Has anyone really defined them? You know what I mean? Besides, it's no, but your spectrum makes sense. It's less more government.
Yeah, that's the only spectrum. That's what I'm going to talk to Steve Brule about.
Yeah.
I want to talk to him about that today.
But specifically, is there a one-payer healthcare or universal healthcare or a welfare state? All of
no, and a lot of people these Carolyn Borisenko, they're undecided on stuff. They're far left on stuff.
You're not allowed to be undecided.
Oh no, I know you're not allowed to be undecided, but you can't just say I am X if you don't know what X is.
Right.
You have to have a good reason for it. That's what I'm saying. It's not that I dislike Carolyn Borisenko. I think she's fine, but I kind of dislike that she is a representative of that leaving the left thing.
Right.
Dave Rubin, the same thing.
I like her.
He's I left the left because it turned out they were mean. It's well, yeah, but what about the principles? Do you have a problem with the principles? Not or they're the fundamental ones. It's not just a feminist, right? To make this easier. Because feminists are easy to hate. But if
this is what I'm talking about.
No, but with feminists, right? If someone says I no longer call myself a feminist,
right,
but they haven't actually challenged the notion that feminism, that patriarchy never existed in the way that feminists present it.
Right. Like
Then
maybe it doesn't exist now, but it did back in history.
Yeah, or it does in this Middle Eastern country, which is
Right.
what they love to
Right.
do. Not like, Islam is full of cucks too, but because it's men. Like that's just it. Like unless they're not men, like you can't pretend like men are different depending on where you are. I mean, they may have different beliefs, but they are the same in terms of like how they got here. So, but yeah, then you haven't actually challenged anything, is what I'm saying. Like and so like your reasons for supposedly shifting allegiances, they're flimsy at best because you're not
or
you don't have a leg
do,
to stand on.
They do challenge like notions, but not like you said, the fundamental.
Yeah.
Like they maybe challenge that there's a patriarchy today, but they
Right.
don't challenge the fundamental idea that men were like keeping women down throughout history or
Right.
something like that.
Right. Or if they don't challenge the fundamental notion that healthcare is indeed not a human right, then
or that life begins at conception,
or that life
something like
begins at
that.
conception, right? Like whatever it is, right?
Right.
You have to basically say, okay, like it makes it really difficult to know what someone's actual political beliefs are if the only thing you're asking for is what camp are you in. You have to basically say, what do you think about this issue, this issue, this issue, this issue, this issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then like depending on their answers, which I would guarantee you that most people will probably not be able to answer every one of those questions because there's probably some issue they haven't thought about, or they're just like, they haven't even looked into, or they still hold a position that's opposite the camp they claim to be in. It's like Carolyn Borisenko says, yeah, I still think that healthcare is a human right, or something, right?
I don't know if she said that specifically.
Or like at least, or she believes that there should be universal healthcare. Right?
She might. I'm not sure.
I think that she did when she was on Hunter Avalone. They had a conversation.
Right.
And the problem is that you have with the Hunter Carolyn thing, which I watched the whole thing. The thing that made me had me yelling at the screen was that neither of them understood why they held the positions they did in terms of their camps. Hunter was like, I am a liberal now, and Carolyn was like, I'm voting Republican now. And they were talking to each other about why that was, but neither of them actually had principles. They hadn't done the work. They hadn't looked into the issues.
The deeper stuff.
Yeah, they hadn't gone into the deeper stuff. It was basically on the tribal level. Hunter was like, well, conservatives treated me like shit when I made a video about them, and so now I'm no longer one of them. And Carolyn was like, oh yeah, Democrats treated me like this because of the knitting community, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, why? Like, if you're not willing to tell me why you hold the positions you hold, and you're basing it on how you were treated on the internet, why should I listen to you? Like, you're not saying anything of real value. And that goes back to the original central point.
I think a lot of people are drawn towards it though because they feel the same way. They're like, oh yeah, I thought I was in this group, and then like they were like so like mean spirited, and like they would censor people, and I thought it was wrong, so I so now I'm in this free speech kind of idea, right? And so people are kind of drawn to that because they're like, yeah, that happened to me. Like I was like, targeted or harassed or abused or victimized by these ideological people.
Right. And of course, the people, and this could also be a side effect of being wrong on the internet, because what if, because I don't know, what if Carolyn Borisenko was attacked by leftists when she was one of the leftists because she said something that she wasn't supposed to, and so they bullied her, and then she's like, well, I'm leaving this group. Right. And of course, I don't have a problem with people leaving the left. They should. Everybody get out. But the point is, I wouldn't want it to be under those circumstances. Like, oh, I got bullied off of it. No, I'd rather people like look into the ideas and then like figure out for themselves, like, what do I believe? What do I not believe? And the same thing goes the other way. So you could have a situation where that purity testing that happens ends up causing people to move from camp A to camp B, but they're not doing it because they figured out where they stand on things. They're doing it because they're trying to avoid the purity testing and the moral posturing that's going on in Camp A. And so the problem with that is inevitably, because they haven't addressed these like sort of root problems, they're going to run to purity testing and moral posturing in Camp B as well, because they're going to say something and be wrong on the internet, and they don't know how to cope with it.
There's definitely some groups that are less ideological than others.
Oh yeah.
That won't, like, you know, be completely like, you know, this is right, this is wrong, black and white, I guess.
Yeah. There yeah, but like I don't think any groups are immune.
No.
Like I see, you know, the kind of stuff in the objectivist corner of the internet where it's like Yarnbrook talking about how much he hates everybody else because they're not as libertarian as he is. And it's just sort of like, well, you're not going to get anywhere with that attitude. Or even like young Ripa does that too, where he, you know, it's like it's not that you can't say what you believe, but if you want to be effective, it's probably a good idea to try to approach this with a little bit less of a puritanical lens on your belief system. So anyway, let me look at the comments and then we'll call it out here, because it's been going for for a long time.
Minutes.
Yeah.
We talk forever, but we should probably keep it a bit concise.
I know. Dave Rubin claimed that Thomas Sowell was one of his major influences even before he walked away, which makes no sense. Yeah, that is kind of strange, because you would think, unless he hadn't like quite figured out what the consequence of liking Thomas Sowell and being on the left is incompatible. I used to be a leftist, then I realized how wrong I was. Arent, I'm John.
I think the left has some points. We could get into it in another video.
Well, maybe another video. I'd like to hear that.
You like looked at me like,
who are you? I love Steve. His take on cuties was refreshing. Steve? Brule? Yes. The only thing about Steve Brule that I think is incorrect is he said that this movie in no way celebrates or supports the sexualization of children. I don't want to misrepresent what he said. And it is instead an anti-child exploitation message, but it communicates that message by engaging in the sexualization of children. So you can't just take what the central message is supposed to be at face value. You also have to look at actually what the execution is and see if they're really against it. Because if you wanted to make a video that was against animal abuse, but you have a bunch of animal abuse in it that's real and not CGI, then are you really against animal abuse? I used to be bottom left when I was coming out of high school, but now I'm in the middle right below the authoritarian line. There's no such thing as authoritarian right. The political compass is bullshit. Stop using it. Stop using it.
Triggered.
The four-field political compass is bullshit.
You are wrong on the internet.
Yes, you're wrong on the internet. Let me see.
You should do a video just explaining your
I've done that a couple of times.
Okay.
I have to figure out how to make it really concise.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to piss a lot of people off, because especially libertarian types, they love to see themselves as like completely outside, like just like, you know, like if the political compass was like a square, they're like up here,
they're
you know, like they're
right.
elevated, but they're just far right. It's okay. It doesn't mean you're a Nazi. The Nazis aren't libertarians, but the left will tell you they are, because they want to be as unassociated with Nazis as possible. That's why they paint them as far right. Like Stalin fancied himself anti-fascist.
How Razor Fist sees himself as far right but libertarian.
Yeah, that's right. Razor Fist gets it.
Yeah.
He's talked a lot about it. Given that both parties are communist-controlled opposition, keeping everyone on the tribal level is what everyone wants. That's why Dems use Antifa to false flag anarchism. It causes the small government people to embrace authoritarianism. Well, that's why I say that Democrats and Republicans, and of course you can just change those parties to whatever the parties of your country are. They sit on the spectrum, but they're all left, right? They're all, and I'm not doing the whole like, everyone who doesn't agree with me is a Nazi thing. I mean, it's in the nature of people in government to want more power. So they're going to want bigger government, whether that is, Republican world police government or that's Democrat welfare state government. But they're both okay with both of those things. I mean, there are Democrat war hawks just the same as there are Republicans that want to pay for baby mamas. So, because at the end of the day, they just want power. That's why the political parties is a terrible way to measure somebody's political principles, because you're just saying how far left are you. The difference between left and right is whether you believe that utopia is possible. Leftists believe utopia is possible, while rightists believe utopia. Essentially, the further right you are, the more you are in favor of self-governance, and you want to be left alone.
And you want to live in reality.
Yeah, and you want to live in reality. The more far left you are, the more idealistic you are about people and like your ability to, hey, if we can just like, socially engineer everyone to believe as we do, then we can get this right. Although I think the ANCAPs, to some degree, also want to socially engineer people, but they at least want to do it in a peaceful way. So, Matthias, how do you avoid being condescending when criticizing another person's ideas? I mean, I criticize people's ideas and I try not to be condescending. I think it basically comes down to taking their ideas seriously before you take them apart.
Yeah, take their ideas seriously and take their ideas, not their character or their humanity or
Right.
Don't criticize them, criticize their ideas.
Great indoors, bottom left sounds like a power bottom. Ken says Islamism has entered the chat. I was just using political compass as a shorthand. Relax, Brian. I'm sorry. Just look. The thing is, I don't want to legitimize it, because I tell you what, I think, and maybe Spacepan, because I know that Spacepan is a hardcore libertarian, if not an ANCAP. The political compass, and I've taken the test, okay? The political compass test was written by a leftist. And the purpose of it is to get people thinking that they are more left than they actually are, and that the being on the left is a good thing, right? That's why I don't like it. It's manipulative in the extreme, and there's no such thing, and Styx Hexenhammer has said this too. There's no such thing as right-wing authoritarianism, and there's no such thing as left-wing libertarianism. Let me see. Did your stream just freeze for everyone else? I don't know. Spacepan says, Brian, I made a video called Starting It, RE, the compass being bullshit. Chop off the two corners and turn it sideways. Then it's a one-dimensional spectrum again. Anarcho-capitalism won't work over long periods of time. Don't tell ANCAPs that. 1000% compass is leftist propaganda. Yes, it is. Okay, see? Another person agrees.
Well, that's it.
That means I'm more right on the internet than most people.
Than me.
No, we can talk about it, but I think that honestly,
I'm on board with your thing now.
Yeah, the thing with
for a long time.
No, she wasn't. But I mean, if you want to challenge it, feel free. I'd rather not. I'd rather not just like accept it as truth.
Well, no, I mean it is clarifying, right? Like the political spectrum is based on how much government you want. It's simple.
Yeah, what is politics if not how do we use force to get other people to do what we want?
Right.
That's all it is. Like there's nothing else.
Yeah.
It's not about like can gay people get married? I don't know. How do you want to use the government to force them?
Right. You could take that and then you could maybe like do a separate one
for what?
Social.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, that's
because like you're not going to use the government. Just be like, like.
If you're not going to use the government, then the social beliefs don't matter, is what I say. I think you can have a whole different conversation about like how much cultural and social coercion should be exercised to get people to behave or not behave in a certain way.
What are they teaching people at school and university?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What's that?
Well,
What's political
but-
spectrum is that?
But who funds the universities and schools? The government does.
All right.
So, all right. But anyway, I'm wrong on the internet. 2D spectrum, by the way. Okay, so we're gonna wrap it up here.
Here's a deep thought.
What?
We're all wrong on the internet sometimes.
We are all wrong on the internet sometimes. I'd rather us be having a conversation than just be wrong on the internet. That's basically what it is. Shaman King says it's not that gay people couldn't get married. It's that people couldn't get married to whomever they wanted. It was about children. Yeah, well, that was it. But like, again, and this is what I personally believe, why should the government be involved in whether or not people have children and get married? Like, why should the state oversee marriage?
For immigration, for example.
Well, yeah, for that I will give you that. But I mean, I'm talking about just like any regular, I guess, like just two Americans or Canadians or English people just getting married, and there's no immigration involved at all. And so like I just wonder, like, should the state be involved with marriage if it doesn't involve immigration?
Yeah, I don't
like
know.
our case. Well, anyway, I will.
We should wrap it up.
Does do two wrongs on the internet make a right? I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna wrap it up here. Thanks, guys, for coming. If you guys like this video, hit like, share, subscribe, comment, and yeah, I guess we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks. We'll do another one in a few days when you figure out if you want to talk about something else.
Yeah, we'll do the lefty talking points.
If you want to, yeah.
I do.
Okay. So yeah, well, maybe we'll do like a little discussion where Lindsay will throw me some what the left has a point about, and we'll see what
You can be wrong on the internet.
see if I'll be wrong on the internet. Yeah.
No, I'll probably be wrong on it.
All right.
That's fine.
All right. Thanks, guys, for coming on. We'll talk to you later, and I'll see you later on today. I'm going to be interviewing Steve Brule on Honey Badger Radio, or Badger live streams, actually. All right.